Hey everybody, welcome along to episode 119, part 1 of Percussion Discussion. Before we get into it, as usual, I'm going to ask you to check out our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and now, wait for it, Threads. Yes, I'm down with the kids on Threads as well, so please give us a follow on there if you are also on that same thing. You can also find us, of course, on our world famous YouTube channel, where you can find all of the conversations past and present, and you will find video to accompany all of these as well. Please subscribe; it keeps you updated with any new material that we've got coming your way. If you would rather listen on the go, then of course all of our conversations are available in podcast form. These are free to download from your favorite provider. Again, please rate and review; helps other like-minded drummers find us and hopefully enjoy us as much as you do. Good. On to today's guest. I did say part 1. We had an incredible conversation, but it's a pretty long one. So I've decided to split it up into 2 episodes. So part 2 will be next week. So I hope you can wait until then, because it gets better and better as it goes along. Today's guest is a gentleman originally from Liverpool and has lived in Los Angeles for the last 15 or 16 years. An incredible drummer. He's played with some amazing artists, Alan Cumming, Boy George, Barclay James Harvest, a gentleman called Neil Diamond. Hopefully some of you heard of him as well. He has a recording studio in Los Angeles called Shabby Road. He's also a big player in the Broadway musical theatre world, and he's done some incredible work. He's done Rent live on Fox. He did the first American tour of Frozen, the musical. He did 2 years in LA on the incredible Wicked, and it's a really, really difficult part to play as well. He wrote the drum book for Paradise Square and his new musical, Shucked. So he's had an incredibly varied career. He's a phenomenal drummer, a really nice guy. As I say, this is going to be over the next 2 weeks. So this is part 1. Gives me great pleasure to welcome the fantastic Mr. Chris Jago. Chris, thanks so much for doing this, mate.
You're welcome, mate. Good to meet you. It'll be fun.
Oh, I hope so. And I appreciate you putting the effort in, because I know you're busy and you're in your Shabby Road studio as we speak.
I am, yeah.
Beautiful space. So tell me, first of all, what's the kind of sole purpose? Obviously, it's a great place to play and record. What's the majority of your work you do in there, would you say?
What I occasionally do bands, but very rarely. It's mainly me. People send me files, Dropbox, tell me what the track is. I record the drums and I send them back.
Yeah.
So it was built to track drums, and I built it right. And I did the floating room, and the drywalls floated, and all the walls are on an angle. And so it sounds good. And I have a live room, and I'm in the control room now with all the stuff. But it was built so I could record, practice, not annoy my family, not annoy the neighbors. And it's worked. I can, if I need to, I could play at midnight. Not that I have occasionally done like a late night session because somebody's been, I need this tomorrow, But I can make noise, close the doors, everything's fine. So that's kind of why I did it. And I had a studio in the last house we were in, which I'm in Woodland Hills now. So, which will mean not a lot to a lot of people. But I used to be in Canoga Park, which is another part of the valley. Is it hotter than where we are now? No, actually, I think where we are now gets like 115. Canoga would get like 110.
Do you know what? And this isn't slightly off topic, but you just imagine Los Angeles would be the same temperature. Does it vary the more you go inland or closer to the sea?
Weirdly, I'm in the valley, and it could be 20 degrees difference from Malibu on the coast to me in the valley, and we're 25, 30 minutes away.
Wow.
Just as soon as you come over the hill and you come down into the valley, the heat just stays in and just bakes everyone. So where I am now, I'm like the sensitive hell. So as much as it's lovely and Christmas is amazing. Shorts on. I'm out at the grill, getting the Christmas breakfast going. Amazing, But then from weirdly, like we're mid-June or something now. It hasn't gotten too hot. And the last few days, it's kind of started to kick in again with the heat. We have a thing called June gloom, which it's overcast, which I like, because it's still not cold, but it's not 110 degrees.
Yeah, sure.
Now, I think we've gotten rid of that, and we're essentially going into summer now. So it's going to be 90s every day until November.
Yeah.
And then some days it's going to get to 105, 110. And then some days it's going to get to like 115. Oh. And it is evil.
Yeah.
So you just don't go anywhere. Well, you try not to go anywhere,
Yeah. As a Toxteth lad, was that hard to get used to?
It is a little bit different from hanging out in Tocky in the summer, because at home, as you know, you get one great day and then you go, oh, this is good. Okay, so we'll go somewhere tomorrow. And then you go somewhere the next day and it could be raining, could be cold, could be windy. And then it'll be nice the third day. And I can basically say now, we're not going to see any rain until November, December. And it's not going to go any lower than 75, 80 until December.
So you don't own trousers, basically, is what you're saying?
Well, I mean, I've got trousers on today, but as I say, we haven't completely kicked in yet. I will have shorts, Speedo on, wife beater. No, but if you can stay inside and you can keep the AC going, mega. It's just if you go out, sometimes I have to go and start the car, put the AC on, come back inside, let it cool down a little bit, and then go and drive.
Wow.
I used to have the shittiest car I had here was a Saturn coupe, which sounds exotic, but it wasn't. So it was a little 2-door. It was black with black leather interior, and it was a manual stick shift, which you don't see that often over here, But obviously, I'm a real person that can drive a car, because that's what we do in England. We learn how to actually drive. It's this side over here. And I used to drive to Vegas every weekend for a gig. Used to play, I had a burlesque gig. Used to catch underwear and bras while I was playing the drums. Great gig. But anyway, we'll get to that. And I used to drive there every week. But because the car was black, I used to have a towel on the seat. And as you're driving through the desert, Eve had a sunroof, so you just baked all the way there. So I'd get to Vegas and have to shower before I went anywhere, because it was the hottest gig ever. But then I got to play with girls taking the clothes off. So, just like any social club in Liverpool.
Well, yeah. Where
it's
I was
the same thing.
Pretty much, yeah. But
down the Legion, those girls are always ripping the clothes off.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to catch bras when you're on stage.
Oh, mate. Do you know what? I forgot where we even were. Oh, we were talking about the studio, weren't we?
Studio, yes. So it's 95% of it is me tracking drums.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of clients, but I have one main client in New York that is the busiest man in the world. And we'll kind of talk about him on and off, because I do all the Broadway shows for him.
Of course, yes.
And he also, because he's a workaholic and he never stops, he's constantly doing demos for people or albums for people, putting together cruise ship shows. Like I've got 30 songs to do for a cruise ship. I've got to have them done. I go away middle of August. So by the middle of August, as I said to you in my text, I've got about 55 tracks to do.
Are these for backing tracks for them to use for their live?
Some of them will be backing tracks. I know some of the cruisers, what they do is they'll have a backing track, but they'll have a band. And let's say the drummer's sick one night. They'll just switch the drums on.
Yeah.
And
a great rehearsal tool as well, isn't it? If you've not got the band there for
it is, which is another reason why they do it. So it's another company that he's involved with. And he has another producer that he's involved with, so I'll work for him as well. And like I've been doing this week, I've been doing the next Broadway show that I'm going to play on, which is The Great Gatsby. So it's based on the novel, and then also kind of using the movie with Leo DiCaprio as a kind of vision of how it's going to look. So we've been doing that, do the cruise ship stuff. I'm developing another show with different people in New York that they do. One thing a lot of the shows do now is they do concept albums. So a show could take anywhere from 5 years to 10 years to get to Broadway.
Wow.
Like it's a long, long process. A lot of bullshit, a lot of red tape, a lot of money.
Does it like have to prove itself almost? Does it have to prove its worth?
It does at various stages along the way. So, you know, some musicals I will go and do a reading of, which is me, a piano player, and maybe a guitarist will be in a rehearsal room. There'll be the cast, and there'll be the creative team, and maybe they'll do some choreographed numbers, but not all. They'll stage it a little bit. They'll maybe have some fake set. And some musicals might only get to that stage, but that could have taken 5 years to get there,
right?
You know, and you're constantly looking for funding. I mean, shows, I think the average show now is 15, 20 million to put on.
Wow.
So that's like a lot of bread.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of producers involved. It's very rare that it's just one producer now, which I've actually done a show like that. And that producer lost all her money.
Wow.
It disappeared. 12 million. So there's there's different stages. So I could be involved, like the one I just opened in New York called Shucked, about corn.
Of course.
Which is hilarious, by the way.
Not the band.
I did demos. Yeah, not the band. The vegetable.
On the cob, yeah.
And it's like a Faulty Towers farce. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And I don't usually like shows, but the one I just did was good. Anyway, so I did demos for that a couple of years ago. The Paradise Square one I opened last year. I did early demos for that maybe 5 years ago. So a lot of this stuff that I'm doing, I mean, I don't know what it's going to be or where it's going to go.
Yeah.
There's songs I've done that 5, 7, 8 years later, I'll be doing them in a show and I go, God, this sounds familiar. And it will be something that I've recorded, but they've really changed it a lot, you know, and they've undoubtedly changed keys and maybe changed feels and reorchestrated it and changed the lyrics. So you're going, God, something about this seems familiar. And it is, because it's the same effing song. They've just changed it around. So get back to the studio. I'll do a lot of those recordings and demos, and that's what I do here.
Yeah.
So I was working over the weekend. I've kind of caught up to what they've sent me. So that's why last night I was like, let's do it tomorrow.
Cool.
Because I've got nothing to do today, which is nice. Probably go to Costco.
Wow, exciting
living the rock and roll dream, you know.
Not the one in Ellesmere Port, then.
No, not that one. That's a bit far to go. I don't think the gas for that would be crazy.
No. So when you get these songs come in, how do you get the stems? Obviously, do you put a click on it and then you get the dots? How does it work, or do you get a rough kit guide?
It's good to hear somebody say the dots. I haven't heard that for a while.
Oh,
it's a very English thing now.
It is, I think.
So they'll send me the stems out.
Yeah.
And it could be as little as Jason, the MD, on a MIDI piano doing a temporary vocal with him. And sometimes it's just hilarious. Like, it's not in his key and it's meant for a woman, but he'll have to like bang out this vocal. So that's funny. I like to give him shit for that. So it could be as simple as that, or it could be, it's very rarely a finished track. Usually I'm going down before anybody else.
Of course.
So that's how it should be, because you want the drums first and then everybody sits on the drummer. So I might get a bunch of MIDI guitars and MIDI bass. So it might be a very kind of stiff, not very attractive recording to play to.
Sure.
But it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? You have to make the best of it. Yeah. And then it usually comes with a click. I'm on Logic. He's on Pro Tools. So we sometimes have a little bit of weirdness with the click. Clash, sometimes Logic doesn't want to read exactly what the Pro Tools click is. And sometimes it works great and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm confused why sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But again, that's having a studio in the Gremlins, and I kind of tap out at a certain point of engineer knowledge, and I just walk away and make a cup of tea and hope when I come back and I've switched everything off and back on again that it works. So your semi-stems, and then because here's the thing, I don't get dots from him generally because I've known him for 20 years and we have a shorthand of how we work and I know what he likes. So it's very rare that there's a confusion or I don't know what to do. Like over the weekend, I must have done about 3 or 4 tracks, and there was one track. What did I send? And it was something he didn't like in it. Oh, you were doing like a snare drum groove thing, and then I was like, I'm going to change it in the pre-chorus. I'm going to go to toms. Mm-hmm. And then I sent it to him before I kind of cleaned it up and finished it. I always send him it and go, how's this? And he was like, oh, great. I don't like the toms. It's too much. It's getting in the way of the vocal. And I was like, did something else, done. So it's a great relationship I have with him. I love it because it feels like I get to be creative, but I kind of know the framework and the boundaries to work within. Do you know what I mean? I know I'm not going to go too proggy, or I'm not going to be this, or I'm not going to do these chops. Not that I'm not choppy anyway, I'm just not. But, you know, occasionally you'll throw something in and be like, oh, that's a bit fancy. Let's see if that stays. And generally it does. Now, with other people, I have done sessions for people that I don't know as well, and they might send me a chart, or they'll say, listen to Chris Jago on Delamitri, Food for Songs. Yeah. And then I go, okay, there you go. I know what you mean. And then I go into it. Yeah, sure. It's 8 out of 10 times it goes really smoothly, and there's either no changes or obvious changes, you know, simple changes. There's the occasional songwriter that you'll work with that is a pain in the ass, and, you know, will be like that. Your 3rd, 16th note in bar 65, I just felt like was like a little late, you know, and I'm like,
you got Pro Tools, fix it.
Yeah, we can. Oh, well, I know I said I wanted ride cymbal in the chorus, but now that you've done it and you mixed it and made it sound good, I don't want ride cymbal now. I want high, like shit like that. But that, to be honest, I know that's coming usually because it's somebody that's inexperienced.
Yeah.
The more experienced people you work with, the easier it is because they know where the important things are. And someone like Jason, who I work with, will go, if he sends me something and he goes, oh, there's a couple of stabs at the end of the first chorus, I need you to get them. Otherwise, do you think? Because he knows me, he knows what he's hiding, he knows what I can do.
Yeah.
So everybody knows what everybody can do and what everybody does, and we all work together well. So you just do it. Yeah. It's when someone who's either found you online or knows you through somebody's mate and second cousin that then turns up, and then that's a nightmare. And then suddenly some 3-minute simple pop song turns into some prog nightmare.
Yeah. Because
they don't know their ass from their elbow.
Yeah. And let's be honest, you know, when the album or whatever song is mixed, no one really gives a shit, do they? It's like no one cares if it's on, you know.
No. And that's really. And like, you know, and I'll like the things that I'll sweat over as drum and as all musicians, you know, one thing about recording to MIDI is it really lets me know that I'm a human because that's blob on. you can't argue with that. So I go in and I record, and I generally my process is I want to play it as good as I can, so there's less editing here, right? But you play into a machine, you know. So I'll come in and I'll send to people. I won't grid it. I'll let them, like, that's your decision. If you want to put it on the grid, you're the producer, you're going to do that. So I try and send people the best take a human could possibly do to a bunch of MIDI tracks, you know. And then I'll come in and I'll sweat over, that third bass drum. And I didn't quite get that. I didn't catch the snare drum right, the tone with all the other ones. And then you'll come in and I'll go, okay, that's a great take, but the snare drum on beat 2, I'm just going to copy one. Like, you do all this stuff and you make it perfect. And then you get the track back. Doesn't matter.
No.
Because you're listening to the drums really loud and you've got drummer's ears on. Yeah. And, you know, I'll also send a reference mix with very or no EQ or compression on, but just balance with the mics. So I can say to the client, here's what I've done. The drums are loud in the mix where we want them to be, obviously. But to normal people, they'll be like, drums are too loud. And you'll send it off and then they'll go, yeah, that's okay. But whenever they get the finished track back, you could always go, I didn't need to move that snare drum. I didn't need to move that kick drum. Yeah. But you do, because pride in your work, you want it to sound good.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be sending out good stems and good files.
Of course.
And I've gotten good at it over the years, you know, learning to record. I did it first for fun, just because I like pissing about with mics. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. And you just get better and better at it the more you do it. And if you can record drums, you can record anything.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And, you know, it's one of those, I honestly think, excuse me, that's the best way to learn. You know, you find out a lot about it when you don't know anything about it. You just play. And you know, and I'm of the opinion, if it sounds good, then it's good. It's as simple as that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And you can get bogged down with the gear thing and you can go crazy. And I have got some nice gear, but I've got a good filter now, I feel, about, you know, do I really need a $5,000 mic for the outside of my kick drum? I don't think so.
No.
And the hundreds, if not thousands of songs that I've sent off to clients, no one's ever gone to me, that outside kick mic, it's just not good enough. No one's ever said that. No. And I've gone through everything from a 58 on the outside to what I've got now, which is this Solomon sub box, which I think was maybe $250.
Yeah.
It's great. And you see some of these drummers with these FET 47 mics in front of the kick drum, $4 or $5 grand. I mean, not to get dark, because I'm not a dark person, but, you know, we've already talked about people we know, drummers who are not working, and the level of work that's out there and what people are willing to pay, and the fact that nobody pays for music anymore.
Yep.
So I have a thing of like, okay, you're going to pay me this much money to do your track, but you want me to have $1 million worth of microphones? I don't think that's fair. You know what I mean? So I've gotten good about picking and choosing where I put my money and knowing where I don't need to.
Yeah. That's pretty sensible, that. And I think these days you can get a good sound on a really limited budget, can't you? It's not like the old days, you know, with a Tascam 4-track or whatever.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to spend a fortune these days to get a certain level of quality. And that's a good
and if you could, I mean, if you're a whiz on Logic or Pro Tools and you've got a good set of ears, you can literally use 457s plugged into any interface and you'll get a decent sound, you know.
Especially if you can tune a drum kit, which is a big part of it.
Exactly, yeah. Like, tune a drum kit. I mean, the rooms are, as we know, like, the room is everything.
Yeah.
And again, I've got a decent room. You know, I can throw my room mics up and it sounds nice and big and full. And,
sure,
you know, and I do 16 mics, which is way too many. but I don't use them all. I just send them to the client to be like, you've got all the options. You've got room mics, overheads, mono over, 2 in the kick, 3 on the snare. All the toms are mic'd. There's a center ribbon room mic. So, it just gives people, if they want to do Coles over and a center room ribbon and get a really lo-fi sound, you can do that. If you want to go full Sting Vinnie Colaiuta, you've got 16 mics to do it with.
And the nice thing is, I'm pretty certain this will be the way it is. You've got your kit for recording set up that never leaves the space, I'm sure. So
never leaves.
Turn it on and go.
Yep, I do. I come over, switch all the pre's on, get everything up and running, and just, I generally pick the right snare drum. I think that's a thing. You find just the right tonality of the snare drum that fits with the song.
Yeah.
If it's a faster song, I generally go thinner. If it's a slower song, I go thicker and deeper, because there's just more air and more room for that snare drum to be big.
Sure.
Change some cymbals. But the toms, the kick drum, I occasionally change my kick drum out. I've got, I'm a Pearl guy, which I tour with and do all the shows at the Pearls. But I've got all those kits dotted around everywhere. Yeah. So at the studio, I've got an old Rogers.
Oh.
And which I'll show you later. And I've got, generally it's 22, 13, 10, because I do it the other way around.
Okay.
16, 18.
Nice.
And occasionally I'll switch out the 22 for the 24. And they're both 14 depth, which I love.
Yep.
In fact, every bass drum I've got is 14 depth, even the Pearl ones. And the toms are the same. Every recording from, how many years have we been doing it now? Been recording for about 16 years on my own. Every time there's toms, it's those toms. Fantastic. Never changed.
Well, if it's not broke, etc. You know the saying.
It's not broken. Do you know what I mean? And then when I do send my like kind of reference mix, the only thing I do is I'll balance the mics. So I think I'm getting the balance that I would want to hear, And on the master drum bus, master drum bus. It's hard to say when you're sober. I'll do a little bit of compression, and I'll put the Pultec EQ on and do a few little kind of curves with that, and that's it. And I'll send that off.
That's an overall EQ. Now we're talking
overall on the master drum bus. Yeah. I don't piss about with any of the individual mics. That's all I send for people to go. Do they like it or do they not like it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is some projects that I will mix. I'll mix the drums, and I've done that. That's maybe 30% of the time.
Yeah.
Which makes sense if you're a singer-songwriter and you don't know how to mix drums. I'm going to do a better mix for you.
Yeah.
Than you're going to do.
All day
so
long.
I'll do that for people as well. But yeah.
I find it really interesting, this stuff. And the fact that you said most of it is for one person, that's just a great relationship, isn't it? That just works, and you know what each other's going to get and give. It's just perfect. That absolutely.
Yeah. Jason's he's a super talent, obviously, because he just works all the time. But he's just the nicest person ever.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether he feels the same way. I think he does, but he surrounds himself with a good team. We have a music team when we set up the shows, where he has like his associate conductor with him, and he has 2 music assistants that are doing everything from charting to writing charts, copying charts out. Then we have a guitarist that he uses in New York called Kevin Ramasar, who is amazing. But the kind of thing that comes through with those 5-6 people is that everyone's super nice and everybody wants to be together. And there's never any bullshit, and there's never any arguments, and there's never any moodiness. And that's why I'll go to New York and work with them for 3 months.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to, and I can't work with assholes anymore. Can't do it, because the business is weird enough. And I said about 10 years ago now, I was like, I'm going to make an effort. and you don't know whether you can do this or whether you can pull it off. But I was like, I'm not going to work with arseholes anymore.
Life's too short.
And
let's be honest.
Life's too short. Do you know what I mean? I could be taken away by a pack of coyotes up in the hills here and never be seen again. But he just, I've known him for 20 years, and over the last, 10 years, we've done a lot of musicals together.
Yeah.
And it's just tied in with my philosophy, and I know his, of just be a nice person, like be able to do the work. That's you have to be good enough to do the work.
Yeah, it's a given. Yeah.
It's a given now. But you don't have to be Vinnie Colaiuta.
No.
As long as you're somewhere between Tony McCarroll, no offense, and Vinnie Colaiuta, as long as you're somewhere in there, you're going to be fine. And then on top of that, if you're a decent human being, I'm not an asshole, I'm willing to work and willing to get stuck in, you're going to work. And it's nice that I've got that team, and I'm, as the kids say, #blessed.
Yeah.
To work with them.
So these 3 months that you'll be doing there, is this literally putting the music for the show together? This is writing the parts, writing songs, writing. And so you will come up with. Are you strictly drums and percussion, or do you get involved in the other stuff as well?
It's all drums and the kind of simple hand percussion stuff. If anything is timps or marimbas, he'll write those parts, and then they'll hire an actual proper percussionist to do that. But the 3 months is generally, it starts with rehearsals in a room, which could go on for between 3 and 6 weeks. And that'll literally be a big rehearsal hall in New York. I'll be in the corner on a little kit, usually plexied in.
The songs are
playing
written
with
at
rods.
this point, yeah?
Some of the songs will be written, and I will have demoed them beforehand, as we talked about before. So I will know, in a show, there's usually 20 to 25 songs.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably know anywhere from 5 to 10 of those songs going into the rehearsal period.
Yeah.
But then when you're in the rehearsal period, every day the songs will change. They'll cut bars, they'll add bars, they'll change keys, they'll change feels. So nothing is ever, even if we've done a demo and they've spent thousands on doing a demo, doesn't mean shit. That can be changed every day for the next 6 weeks. So, okay, I might go in, I might know some of the songs. Then all day, all 6 days a week from 10 to 6, there'll be group rehearsals. And I could spend 8 hours playing. I could spend 20 minutes playing. Depends what's going on.
Sure.
They're working on a book scene where there's no music.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm sitting twiddling my thumbs.
You've still got to be there.
I'm not doing. It's what's right.
You've still got to be there, though.
Still got to be there, but then the music team will use that time to be like, oh, we need a chart for that other song we did, Jago. So I'll be sitting there writing the drum chart, and getting that ready, or I'll be working on another song that I know. Oh, we've just finished rehearsing a big dance number, and I put a bunch of hits in because I was watching the dancers. Oh, okay, there's a hit on 3, and there's a blah, blah, on 4, and there's a blah blah blah. So I'll write all this shit in, and it's all. At this point, it's over the piano vocal chart. So there's no drum chart yet. I'm just scribbling on a piano chart. Yeah. And then as the weeks go on and things get more set, then I start to actually write full drum charts, note for note, that then go to the music assistants, that then put them in the master score.
Yeah.
And then that gets built up. And then after the 3 to 6 weeks of rehearsals, we go into tech, which then we'll move to the theatre. And then it's all about how people work on the stage, how the stage works, how the automation on the stage works, how the lights work. So again, I could be playing all day, or I could be sitting twiddling my thumbs, but then I have to go, I'll go and build the rig. And usually for these shows, it's loads of equipment. They always say, Jago, this show is going to be super simple. It's all going to be in 4/4. We just need a little drum kit. It's going to be the easiest thing ever. Cut to 8 weeks later, I'm on this monster drum kit with triggers and mark trees, bell trees, congas, bongos, cajones, everything you can shake, 12 cymbals, 4 toms, 2 snares. Like, it gets out of control.
Yeah.
And no one means it to get out of control. It's just, you have this 3 to 6 weeks in the rehearsal room, and then Jason or the choreographer will be like, oh, we need this sound here, we need that sound there. And suddenly you're like, oh, now I need 2 snare drums. For instance, Hamilton, I think, is 7 snare drums.
Whoa. Yeah, because there's lots of hip hop stuff in that and all sorts, isn't there?
It's hip hop stuff. So he's got his main one, he's got a couple down here, then he's got all these little snare drums like high up. Super weird. So I'll be building the rig. Usually I'm in a box on my own. So I'm somewhere else in the theatre. We're all video linked in. I have a mic to talk to people. So there's always stuff to do. And then once you do the tech period, then you're doing previews. So you're still rehearsing every day, but then you're doing shows at night.
Oh, that's tough.
So now we're into like the end of the second month. And then that's around the time that you record the album.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a shitstorm as well, because that's done in a day. There's none of this like, let's go in and get drum sounds and take our time getting tracks. We go in and do 20 to 25 songs in a day. You get 2 takes at most, and it's frightening. And I kind of enjoy it. I enjoy it as much as I'm petrified. Do you know what I mean? Like the last Shucked record, we were at Power Station, which I think used to be Avatar, maybe. But it's there's only 2 big studios left in New York.
Right.
Massive room. And because they wanted this to sound more like a pop record, they put me in a big room, which is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like proper old school, John Bonham, millions of mics everywhere, massive room, in there on my own, you know.
Yeah.
But it's stressful, to be honest, because it's not like, okay, well, let me just run down the track a couple of times, get a feel for it, and then we'll do a few takes. It's like, number 1, go. How was that? Anybody make a mistake? I fluffed. Okay, do it again. Done. Next song. Yeah. Like, it's insane. So you're doing that as you're doing previews and rehearsing every day. And we were doing some TV stuff. So you're doing anywhere from 8 to 12, 13 hours a day of being there and being present and being in it. And then the last month of that 3 months is kind of the easiest month, because the show is open and I'm just doing the show.
Yeah.
And I say just doing the show, 8 shows a week. And the show is 2.5 hours long. Yeah. So at least, you know, you have Monday through Friday, you have your days off.
Sure.
So, and then I bed the show in. And then towards the end of that month, I started getting my replacement who's going to take over and do the show, because I don't live in New York.
Yeah. And so
that's the 3-month thing.
That's insane. So at the end of it, once the show's bedded in, you know, everything works. Do you have a say in who comes in to take the seat over? Or is that
absolutely, yes. So that's a discussion that goes on between me, Jason, and usually his associate. And actually, the girl that took over from me on Paradise Square last year. She's really good. Yeah. A girl called Emma Ford, Australian girl. And Daniel, who is Jason's associate conductor, knew her from Australia.
Yeah.
So we got her in, and then we got her in again for Shucked. Yeah. So she took over. So she's there now doing 8 shows a week. And I actually, before I left, I had to get her subs in. So she comes and watches me, and I give her recordings and all that stuff. And then all the subs come and watch me.
Sure.
So they get, not that I'm anything special, but you want them to see the original vibe. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, totally. This is what it should be. Yeah. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with me or not, this is what the show is.
It's going to end up as Chinese whispers otherwise, isn't it? It's going to end up a different show.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so she's got 3 drummers now that kind of sub for her. Because you know, I mean, you have to have at least three depths. Yeah. Remember my English words there?
Depths.
3 depths.
Subs to me is football, not music, but there you go.
I know. Subs is like playing footy out there. So you have to keep people in rotation. So I know you're tempted to be like, and like I know Emma was tempted as well. Like she's a single girl, she's got, she hasn't got a family, so she's like, I'm going to do 8 shows a week. You're doing it, but you can't, because if you keep doing 8 shows a week and then suddenly you're off sick or you need your depth to come in, they're not going to know the show well enough.
Yeah,
and it's okay that you've got the dots there and you're reading, but you can't. Like I've had drummers make this mistake before. They can read fly shit and they come into a show and they just go, I don't need to prep. I'll just read it. Bullshit. You've got to watch the conductor most of the time, and be aware of what's going on and not have your head in the book. So if you haven't got your depths somewhat loose and ready and coming in every, let's say even 10 days,
sure,
that's kind of what you've got to do. So Emma's probably taking, 3 shows off every 2 weeks. It's probably a healthy way to do it. If I was doing it regular now, I wouldn't do more than 5, 6 a week.
Really?
Because now I'm old and it's too hard. Yeah. And unfortunately, well, I think it's unfortunately, I play hard and I get stuck in and I play with a lot of energy, and that's great. And I like it. I like how it sounds, but 8 times a week, 47, that's starting to get hard. I'm not saying I can't do it, but you do have to think about your health. And I have things wrong with me because of drumming over the years, and if I'm, towards the end of my 3 months on Shucked, which ended, where are we now? Ended about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I could start to feel my body starting to break down a bit. And my elbow was in again. I had like an ulnar nerve issue, and that was starting to flame up, and my shin swells up a little bit. Because, old.
Hey, older. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah.
But like if someone said to you, okay, we're down the Legion 8 times this week, you'd be like, what?
No.
Like it's hard graft.
It is. I mean, I've done I've done panto for many years in the local theatre in Rill, and I think it was something like 56 shows or something, and it's just like, and it's mind numbing at the end of it. It's great for the cast; they're looking out, and we're in the pit, and it's just like, it's just like same jokes, same gags.
You get none of that gratification back. I'm in a box on my own.
Yeah,
just
that's worse.
It's super weird, and people don't talk about that enough on Broadway as well, of like how isolating it can be. Yeah. And okay, you're in this big show, but it doesn't feel like it. I could be here in LA. I could be in a practice room at Crash Rehearsal Studios.
Yeah,
it's super weird, and you get none of that back.
Yeah,
which at the end of the day, we all have fucking egos, and we all did this to be in a band and be rock and roll. So if you're not seeing the audience like the cast are, it's a different vibe.
Do you hear the audience? Do you have like do you have ambient mics or anything like that? Do you hear the reaction?
Yes. On this show, we did have good mics on the audience, actually. It was a lot better. It felt like, and also it's a comedy, so you're hearing the laughs, which was fun. Yeah. So I really enjoyed this last one because it wasn't the previous one I did in 2022. Yeah, we're 23 now, aren't we? 22. That was a really serious drama, and people were getting killed, and it was slavery involved and starvation. So it's a lot, 8 times a week. You're like, Jesus, can we have some relief? This one, hilarious comedy. So it was nice to hear the audience laughing, because you forget when you've heard the joke 100 times in rehearsals. Yeah. You forget how funny it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to hear the audience laughing, and then we do a song, you hear them cheer, great. When I did the Wicked, I did Wicked in LA for 2 years.
Yeah.
And that was
tough read, that one.
That is hard. Like, that is no joke.
Yeah.
People will crash and burn on Wicked.
I've sweated over The Wizard and I many times on live shows with no rehearsal. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, no. Well, what was there's good and bad things about that show, but one of the bad things was however it was designed sound-wise, I was in a box again, and I might be in the pit, or I might be under the stage, or I might be in a dressing room somewhere else.
Wow.
You know,
could
like
be
I could
miles
be
away.
Yeah, I could literally, like, I'd say to the band, have a good show, guys. And then I'd walk for 5 minutes through the theatre and through the boiler room. And then I'd be in some
Spinal
shit
Tap.
old box somewhere. It's totally Spinal Tap. I mean, you walk into work, like, I'm getting lost here. But they would kill the mics after you do, like, something like Defying Gravity, which is a great tune, massive, and slamming, like,
it's going to get the ovation, isn't it?
It's
going to get the ovation.
Get the ovation, and she goes, down. You cut the mics, it goes dark, and you're just sitting in a box on your own, sweating, just work your balls off. Silence.
That's horrible.
Horrible. Super, super weird. Like, definitely had some PTSD from doing Wicked. Jeez. But I did it 2 years in LA, and then from 2009 to just a few years ago, I would go out on the tour and cover the guys who were on the road. You know, one of the guys on what, because it had 2 tours at one stage, because it was the biggest thing since, you know, sliced bread. And he'd pulled a disc in his back. So he was a mess. So he would sometimes go off for 2 months. So I would just go out and fill in. And it was great because I didn't want to be on the road because I have a family. But I'd be like, I'll go away for a little bit. You earn some money, play a show that you know, get a workout, come home. It's great. And the guys on the road love me because they know I don't want the gig. So there's no weirdness of like, Jago's going to take the gig back. No, I don't want the gig. Like, I'm happy to come out for a week, 2 weeks, for a month, you know. So I did that. I've probably done 1,500 Wickeds.
Wow.
Over the years.
Could you do it without the dots now, do you reckon?
I could do, I don't know. I haven't done it for about 4 years now because we've had the pandemic. We've lost those weird years, just disappeared. I think I last did it in about 18. And if I had to do it again, I think I'd have to shed it a few days here. And I'd gotten Wicked down to, because again, the mind games, again, people don't talk about this. The mind games of doing that show 8 times a week or 7 times a week, if you're taking one show off, you start to go crazy and you start to question what you're playing. And you have these stupid superstitions about what you need to do and where things need to be, because you've thought about every detail way too much because you've been in there for, let's even say, a year at that point. So a year of Wicked is probably 400 shows. So you're already that deep in. Your mind's playing tricks on you. So there was one piece of music in the second act, something about monkeys. Can't remember what it was called. Anyway, doesn't matter. But it made no sense. And I do hits that the band wouldn't do, but I think the monkeys were doing on stage. So the band would go, blah, 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 and I'd go, and it was just this terrible piece of music, to be honest. Wicked's amazing. But this was a terrible piece of music. And it made no sense groove-wise, and it never went in me. I just couldn't. So the whole show, the only piece of music I had up was one A4 piece of paper of that, Set the Monkeys Free or something. And every night, even 2 years in, I would read it down. But that's insane. Like, that's how the mind games are. I shouldn't have to read that. I should be fine. But because I'm literally losing my mind in there, and you start to pick at stuff going, I didn't play that 3rd, 16th note perfect there, because that's the kind of minutiae and detail you can get into.
Of course. When
you're a year in. If you've just got to dip in on a gig or fly into some boozer somewhere, you just play and you just get it out and it's done.
It's done, isn't it? Forgotten,
Done. You've moved on. But the show thing, it can mentally take you down.
Tell me, what's the reason for being in a box? Is it an acoustic thing? Is it a levels thing for out front? Or does it give you the ability to hit the dynamics you want to play? It's
all those things. It's if you none of the new shows now, the new pop shows, have a drummer in the pit that's not in a box.
Sure.
Because thankfully, they've realized, sound designers have realized that if you're going to do a pop show, you want a drummer that knows that world. And if you know that world, you're not tickling them. Do you know what I mean? There's no great pop rock drummer that comes out and tickles the drums. Like, you're hitting the drums.
Yeah.
And I've found over the 20 odd years that I've been doing it is that the shows are becoming more contemporary, kind of music style wise. So they want players like me. They want guys that have been in bands that are pop rock guys, but understand theatre. So when I started doing it, I had the learning curve of, why are people waving at me? What are all these Italian words? I don't know what this means. What's going on? I had that to learn, but I had the feel and the groove thing down. They were like, oh yeah, we like what he's doing, but can you try and fucking figure out where we are in a piece of music? I'd be like, I don't know, I'm lost. You know, so now all the shows, most shows now are pop based. So the drummer is definitely in a box, and more than likely that box is not in the pit anymore.
Yeah. Because
the shows have gotten so elaborate that they'll use some of the pit space for speakers or for set. So on Shucked, there's only 6 of us in the band. So the conductor plays keys and he's up front, 2 guitar players, bass player, fiddle player, second keyboard player. They're in a pit, and I'm under the stage behind them. And it was the same for Paradise Square, same for Wicked, same for Frozen. Weirdly, I did Rent at the Hollywood Bowl last summer, and I was on stage and I was just plexied in. Yeah. But that's a rock and roll show. Do you know what I mean? Oh, yeah. So, and it's a rock and roll PA, and he can crank it up.
Yeah, yeah.
But theatre sound is a tough one to get right. And like, I have a love-hate relationship with it, because I'll go and see shows and I'll be like, oh, that could sound louder or better. But you have to remember the most important thing is the storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we all I'm like, why are the drums loud? Why can't we hear the bass? But at the end of the day, it's all about telling the story. And that's
what the people have paid for at the end of the day, isn't it? So, you know.
Yeah. So as much as I go out front and I go, God, we're lashing it down there. It sounds like Wembley Stadium in our ears. And I come out front and it's this big.
Yeah.
But you'd have to give it up, because it's not even. I mean, you shouldn't call it a musical. You should call it a costumical or a lightical, you know. but like, the music is usually smaller than you want it and doesn't sound how you want it. But that's what it is. It's a musical. It's people want to hear every.
You're better off not listening front of house and just staying down and.
Oh yeah.
And I'm guessing, I know this is a minor thing, but I'm guessing if you want to go and play in your shorts and a t-shirt, it's no sweat because nobody's seeing you.
Doesn't matter. You can be full speedo, Vaselined up, ready to go.
See,
doesn't matter.
That to me is like, I don't have to wear a shirt. I don't have to, you know.
I know.
Oh,
yeah, it is good. It is good. There's been, I think, only when Wicked was in the pit in the box, there's certain contractors, which are called fixers in England. We call them contractors here. There's certain fixers that will be sticklers about, you've got to wear black. And we'd be like, no one can see us. But that's their thing, and they have house rules, and you know. But 8 shows out of 10 now, I turn up like this.
Yeah.
Hang my coat up, do my warm-up, do the show, go for the pint.